Okay, Chris, you mentioned a crossover two. We'll look at that right now with Keegan's team. So, uh, two-step crossover is essentially a three-step crossover without the third step, right, Keegan?
Yeah, yeah. It's another dynamic move that lets you cover ground here. I'll let Chris coach my team here for a moment.
Actually, Keegan's very good. Keegan's team is very good at this. We talk from time to time, and how much time do you spend on this move versus some others? And again, we put it in their tool belt as well. But I think the X2 does give some more space, as you saw in that quick three. It's a little bit more jabby. You can't quite get the length that you can with the X2, but you see Keegan's middle there do a nice job of almost getting from the middle of the floor to the pin and just a crossover and a jump, and we're still making that dive, which is okay as long as we're over the net. But his team's about as good as any that I've seen doing this.
Keegan, how do your blockers know, or is this just instinct, if they have time to take the third step or not?
Yeah, it's just a function of what they see is what we would say. A three-step crossover we think is certainly the most dynamic and athletic movement you can make, but it's all a function of time. So, they're on their way. They generally have a sense of the kind of speed they'll be facing. Is it in system or not? Is it a long set? I think is another differentiating factor for us. You might see more crossover twos when somebody's setting near. You tend to have less time there. So time is the ultimate determiner of what move we're going to make. And again, it's something that we've invested a lot of time in. We face a lot of fast offenses. Certainly when Jordan Poulter was setting Quaid, we were making some crossover twos. We think is a good tool to cover this space in the modern game.
Can you cover more area with the crossover too, because your third step isn't kind of stopping you from covering more area?
There's been some studies and debates in terms of like which of those two movements is faster, gets you higher. Anecdotally, my thought is yes. I don't think a crossover two is good in an overload situation. That's where I think a quick three is better. But if I'm in the dead center and I got to turn and run to get to this fast set, I think I'm faster turning and running than I am shuffling along the net. That would be my response to that.
Okay, at the risk of confusing everybody with what we're seeing here, Chris, I took a couple plays here and I overlaid them on top of each other. And in one of the plays, your middle's going to use a crossover three, and in one, she's going to use a crossover two. And so we're going to pause it when the setter is setting, and we're going to see. I can bring my little arrow circle tool out. This middle, she's going to use a crossover three, and this middle is going to use a crossover two to kind of cover some more distance. So I think this addresses what I just asked Keegan. But let's see if we can see what's going on here. But you can see the middle closer to this slide is going to use a crossover three, and the middle further is going to use a crossover two. So, Chris, how do you feel about the distance covered? Looks like she actually didn't cover more distance, but
in this case, about the same distance. But I would agree with Keegan. You can get a little more lateral distance off the crossover too. And again, sometimes it's just a function of time. Do I have time to plant and maybe get up a little bit higher versus is it more important for me to stop just slightly short and get over the net? And so that was the same middle as you overlaid, and it's pretty similar to the move that she made. And so again, I think that's a little bit of the art and the science that comes into coaching is what move makes sense for my player, what makes sense for my team, and how do you want to go about devising how much time we spend on that skill set. And so at the younger levels, I would say try to work in the ideals a little bit where we're a lot of three-set crossovers, and where especially if we're talking that blocking is not that important, I'd rather live in the ideal. And then once it gets more important, as Keegan and I know, then we can start hammering down between some of these X2s, shuffle patterns, so on and so forth that maybe have a little more nuance to them.